Welcome back to another episode of Corralling the Chaos. Today, we have a returning guest and somebody that many of you already know, very famous in our industry. We have Omar Kolom here from AV Educate, and we're going to dive in today, really focused on the freelancers and the great crew in our industry that help all of you create these epic experiences and all that really goes into that. And so Omar's going to help us kind of unpack that and talk about what he's been doing with AV Educate, which he founded about 5 years ago because he really has a heart to kind of serve the freelancers in our industry. So thank you, Omar, for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. I'd love to be here. I love what you guys are doing for the industry as well. So it's a win-win right now in this conversation.
Yeah, great. Well, I want to know, tell us about how you got into the industry and kind of what led you to starting AV Educate.
Yeah, so I joke around that I came out the womb doing AV, right? And the reason I can do this joke is that my father, which I'm in his building today, Media Stage in South Florida, owns an AV company. So I literally grew up in the industry doing this, loved it coming in. I didn't really get into the family business, right, until after my military career. But in high school, I did theater, I did TV production. I did it all. That was literally my elective every single year. So it's how I kind of gave myself the start to get in. And then luckily, because my father's in the industry, I started doing corporate AV. So, I was a corporate baby the entire time. But I love this industry. I love what it does. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And then from that process, I'm Latin, if no one knows. I'm Puerto Rican, born and raised. Well, born, not raised too much, but born. So my father's very Latin and is very much, oh, you want to learn this? Here's the manual. Go figure it out. You know, like the Latin culture. So I took that a line. I read a lot of stuff. And my dad, again, working for my father the first 6 years after the military, it was very much, you're not going to do this, you're going to do here. So I was the carpentry guy, the warehouse guy for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And then when I was able to specialize after about 3 to 4 years into video, that's when the real rabbit hole started to happen of like, I thought I knew these things from the packing and unloading, but like, this is a whole other world. So then I went down the rabbit hole learning and stuff. And when I started this, it's 15, 16 years ago, there was nothing. If pack rat there's a word for pack rat for digital content, that is me. So I started saving and researching and learning as much as I could about video. And then, progression on the road, became the lead video guy here. From that, after a certain point, got into a good section there. And then I left this and went freelance to, gain more knowledge, more money, experience, and more things, kind of get out of that. We have the same gear situation. Mm-hmm. And then worked at a company for a while as the operation manager, then went to director. And that's when I was given the opportunity to teach. And that's how I got into AV Educate. So, kind of a weird sequence of events there. But yeah, I got it through my dad, pretty much. I got it with my dad, and I started AV Educate because of the way my dad had taught me to look at things. And again, when I started this, so anybody who's new right now, right, and you probably could attest to this, Angela, what you do, what I do wasn't available until we started doing this. It wasn't an option. And now it is because we started it, and other people are trying to do stuff as well, but they're not, they're trying.
Yeah, it's like there's never been a better time for somebody to enter our industry. I think about, you said you did it 15 years ago. There was no loyalty, right? You were literally like, you had to figure it all out yourself. You had to go find your own gigs. You had to follow up to get payment. You had to learn, beg, barter to get somebody to take you under their wing, to teach you, to train you, because no companies were investing in that, right? You were literally thrown into the middle, figure it out. Yeah. And so, I've always laughed and thought, well, gosh, our industry, we don't do anything to help ourselves, like entice people to come join it. Like, what's enticing about that, right? Go build your own book of business.
Yeah.
Go form relationships, go learn on your own, go read. But hey, there's no opportunity to have hands-on experience because you got to get hired. But to get hired, you have to have the experience. It's like, why would they do it? Whereas today, it's a totally different scenario. And I think that's why we're seeing even more universities create these programs around this for the industry. So It is a really good time for those that are considering a career in this industry. Thanks to people like you, Omar, who are really kind of out there teaching people, not just the technical skill set, but there's a lot of soft skills that go into being a freelancer. And so 100%. Talk to us a little bit about, I'm sure, I have a little bit of a background in training too. I don't know if you're like me, but like there were always certain topics that were more energizing for me to talk about than others. So like, what are you most excited to train on today and why?
Something you said a little bit earlier that I wanted to touch on too, that we can get on is, one of the advantages now that the industry is doing that wasn't present pre-pandemic even, 2019, was the simulators now. The simulators are so useful to use because, like you said, it's very hard to get hands-on, which is one of the reasons I started what I was doing, is that hands-on portion of it. And to your comment about like, what's my preferred method of teaching? Honestly, it's the hands-on method. Like most of the people in the industry, it's the hands-on. There still needs to be a fundamental knowledge and understanding of concepts, which you do with the PowerPoint side, but then to apply that immediately the same day to say, hey, we just talked about this, right? This box that does X, Y, Z. Now let's see you apply that knowledge right now hands-on so that you retain that information and not just like, oh, cool, I learned these things, but am I going to remember it 3, 6, a year later down the road? Like the idea is yes, because you're going to get hands-on with this. You're going to build some muscle memory at that point. But the simulators are fascinating because they work almost exactly like the real world, except you don't get to plug things in and out, right? So like you're still missing that one component, but now you can read the manual, run the simulator, and then if you're an online learner, you can go to YouTube and get like bits and pieces here to like run through things. The real key to the simulators though is you can really dive in and do some really cool stuff with it by just being a creative person and saying, what would be the ideal show I want to build out, right? What would be the ideal scenario? And then building that in the simulators and seeing how it works out so you can figure out those limitations you have within the software. And that's one of the really cool things going forward that I'm really excited about, is that there's a lot more opportunity to get experience, at home essentially, to gain knowledge so when you go on site. And to your point about the soft skills, that's really the hardest part. I think the part people miss the most because they don't take as much credit for it. And there's two reasons I say this a lot. I'm sure you have the same ideas. One of the things that most clients ask for is not the technical side, it's the soft skill side. I want them to deal with my clients. I want them to deal with the crews. I want them, and I say deal in a way of like more like manage and help and be hospitable, right? Be added to the team. The other thing to the soft skills that guys seem to miss out all the times, or people seem to miss a lot of times, is that the other half is I am more happy to be on your team, on team Lasso, team AV2, whatever it is. If you're treating my clients well and you mess something up, I will vouch for you. But if you're treating my clients like shit and you're messing up, you're the first one on my blacklist that's not coming back, right? So like I can work with you if you need more help on training technical wise. It's very, very hard to build the soft skills. So no matter how much we do that, it's still a hard topic. And even though we offered virtually online and we offered in person, like we had Growth and Development Network, we did these lunch and learns, right? These are free open events to work on soft skills. You'd still be surprised about, we still got a lot of technical skills, which I get it. You guys want to learn this stuff. It is the fun stuff. It's the puzzles you want to solve. But the soft skills is what the clients are asking for, and they're the ones signing your checks. So learn them and master them, because honestly, it's not hard to be polite and hospitable. And a lot of the times what I realize is the more technical you get, the more complex your mind thinks about things, you tend to shut down when you get asked certain questions because you're like, I have to do X, Y, Z to get there. It takes this. It's like, you know that? They don't. Just tell them that, and they will be like, oh, I didn't know. Okay, got it.
That's such a good point, right? Just communicating, because I do think that's true with a lot of event organizers. Many have limited ideas, right? That's why they're hiring you, right? They know it gets done. But I think educating them on the process and the workflow helps defend a higher price point, helps you sell on value, helps you sell on outcome, and helps them have a little bit of empathy for what the teams go through to give them that type of outcome. And so I don't think our industry, we've done such a good job of kind of blending in, not tooting our own horn, not really educating people, right? It just kind of happens and it's magic. And I think for our industry, I like the humility, but sometimes it's okay to have confidence and to really educate the end client on what all exactly you're doing. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and it's our fault too, right? Because unfortunately, like you're saying, we do always, 99% of the time, we do always make it happen.
Yeah.
So we get frustrated with, we always do it this way. It's like, yeah, because the guys always figure it out. And unfortunately, that's also our downfall, is that we always figure out a solution for the crazy requests. But if you were to explain things once in a while or add that information to it, it may not be such a crazy request. It'd be like, hey, it's possible if we do this way, it'll cost more. Or it's possible if we did X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Or hey, how about next year, if that's really what you wanted, because that's not what was told. And just having that conversation versus, yes, we'll make it happen. And then we do make it happen. And they're like, well, they made it happen. And that's, I just communicated.
Meanwhile, there's all those unintended consequences.
Correct.
How do you simulate the stress levels, the competing priorities at show site, the having to prioritize multiple demands at a show site, right? How do you simulate that in a training versus just the technical skills, right? Since people are looking for these soft skills, right? Of how do you prioritize? How do you deal with stress levels? How do you deal with personality conflicts at the show site, right? So how do you all simulate that kind of thing?
That's a great question, and I love this question because it does come up a lot. And I can guarantee you I don't have the perfect answer, but I have the closest I can get you to being in the hot seat without being in the hot seat.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is my classes are intentionally made for you to fail. Every class I do, I bring up in this first my class. Every question I ask you guys, every scenario I bring up to you guys, every piece of cable you got to touch to has some failure point. You have to figure out what it is to solve, right? And it's part of the game of it. The other thing that I do too is I time you. So if you're doing, let's say, one of our GAV classes, and we're doing a setup where it's, hey, I need you to get PowerPoint to the switcher to the projector, and I want to hear music coming out of this system. You're not going to walk in there and just start touching it. It's going to work. Nope. There's going to be something unplugged somewhere. There's going to be power missing somewhere. There's going to be wrong formatting somewhere. You have to solve a bunch of problems. And on top of that, I'm going to time you. So you have a certain time limit to do that. That's where the pressure comes in. And then to add to that mix, right? So now we're teaching you technical problem solving skills under pressure because you're timed. Then you have the crew around you that's watching you, which is giving you another pressure as well, right? And then what we do is we pull somebody aside and we say, hey, I need you to play XYZ person. Go in and there be the chatty Cathy, go in there be the Karen, go in there be the lost presenter, be the client who's just asking questions while you're also trying to figure something out. Do that so that when you guys fail either or, the soft skill side or the hard skill side, it's a discussion for 5 minutes after that scenario. So the pressure is, hey, here's 5 minutes to get it solved because timing is always of an essence. No matter what we're doing, seconds feel like minutes because it takes us forever to solve something, even though maybe it was quick, but it does add up, right? That's one way to add pressure. The other one is to add that element of, hey, by the way, you have to be smart enough to troubleshoot and keep your cool and communicate to somebody else and do that effectively. And then also that is immediate. We get that immediate feedback. Hey, you did this well. You totally failed on this portion, right? And we don't do it in a way that's demeaning. We do it in an educational environment. Like, hey, this is the time to fail and to be yourself so that you can learn from that. And then when you go through this drill again, because you're all going to go through this drill at least twice, the second time you do this, you're going to have a better reaction to it because you know better now, right? This isn't I didn't know. It's like, well, you do because we just told you. So hot seat by adding a timer on there for the hard skill side, hot seat by adding the client in there for that, and getting both at the tackle at the same time. And that's my way of creating an environment. And the reason I say at the beginning that, this is the best that I can do is this is a time where you can just act like what you want to act like, learn from the scenario, and then improve on it. But the reality is when you're in that hot seat in the real world with a client that's actually paying you in a show environment, that stress level I can never recreate. But that timing and adding people into is the closest I can get you to that, so that at least you have feedback on it. Because the worst is when you do a show and you don't get a call back or you get kicked off a show or moved around and you don't know why. And unfortunately, the reality is as a freelancer, we are kind of expendable, and it's kind of the game you're playing, is that you are the scapegoat for the client. And also, I don't want to cause more drama by adding fuel to the fire right now because I still need you here, just not in this room anymore. But I'm not going to tell you that because I don't need to add drama to this. I just need to get the show done with so that we can make everything right. So it's a double-edged sword, but that's how we do that to make it effective, by communicating and timing it. And that seems to work very well. The one part that I make it fun, though, so again, it's not just beating you up the entire time. Every student that does the mock drill, they get the chance to mess it up. So it's not me doing it. It's your fellow students messing you up. So they get to do it. They solve the problems. We have a discussion about it. And then I tell them, hey, you have 60 seconds to mess up whatever. And then the next guy's going to come on and he's going to try to solve your problem in addition to solving this other skill set. And I'll usually have the person who did the drill say, hey, you pick another character that you've experienced. Ask somebody else to do that person and let it fly. Let's see what happens. And it becomes a group discussion, which is very, very useful in my opinion, to also, bring in this happened. How do I solve? Here's the answer. The timer brings in that scenario of you're under pressure to solve a problem that you didn't create, which is usually what ends up happening, So that's how we kind of try to implement that. You're in the hot seat environment, but still keep it educational and learning moving forward.
Do any of your students, I don't want to say fail your class, I'm going to say not pass your class?
Most of our classes have a certificate of attendance, right? So you come to class, you attendance. Honestly, the ones that fail are the ones that just don't apply themselves. There's a cost to everything. And the one quote that I read recently is, you need to pay attention to learn, right? So you need to pay attention. There's a cost, right? Is you paying attention is the cost. But the other thing to that is most students, I feel that they don't engage with the stuff. They kind of just show up and they don't engage the material. They don't ask questions. This industry has a crossing point of experience and knowledge. And, I'm providing you as much as I can on one end, but you still need that experience portion of it. And if you're not engaged in the learning side and committing to just that portion of it, it's going to take you longer to move up. And I hate to use a scenario because I know someone watches is going to say, oh shit, that's me. But I started this 15 years ago. I am doing lead positions, TD positions, all these great stuff. Took me time to get there. I still know people to this day that are stagehands that I met 15 years ago. And I don't want to say it's a skill issue. I think it's, at this point in my career, I don't think it's a skill issue because they've been doing it for so long. I think it's a soft skills issue. And that is what causes that move up, right? And part of soft skills is engagement, being engaged in learning how to do things better. And you would learn quickly because, like you said earlier, my mentor was a very, very grumpy man. He was very diligent in making sure he knew that I was wrong all the time. But again, ex-military here, I took that as
military. You were ready.
I was ready for it. And I was like, oh, I did what wrong? Give me the details of what I did wrong. Cool. Let me make some notes for improvements for next time because you're just teaching me without wanting to teach me. So that took me a long time to move up. And I'm forever grateful for his knowledge because it was very empowering to then go freelance and be like, oh, I know how to solve all these problems because I was critiqued for 6 years about all these problems. So I know all these solutions now, right? And because, again, learning the soft skills side, I met Clem Harold in the field who gave me this, I call it a confidence boost, right? We did a projection gig one time, and it wasn't so much it was because I was so used to the negative feedback loop, I was so I don't understand these processes until I met Clem and did a show, and he's like, well, it sounds more like you're not accepting that there's different ways to do things. And I was like, oh, the solution I wanted wasn't the one I wanted, but it was still a truth and it still works. And that one unlocking of knowledge put into perspective 100 other things in my life moving forward in AV, because it's I know what works best for that scenario because we did it a bunch of ways wrong. But I also understand for this job, for this scenario, this thing that I did in the past is going to work versus all these other ones. It does work, but not for this scenario because it's not this show. And that is where I think the other part of the class is really coming to play is we're teaching you in an environment that is very flexible and fluid so that you understand there is not an SOP that says you do this first, and this first. There's a guideline for that says, hey, these generally work in terms, but you need to be able to be creative enough to think outside the box and say, well, if this didn't work, what could it be? And then figuring out those solutions as you move forward. So that's always an interesting thing to talk about when you talk about how the industry solves problems and how we do things is really, you're going to learn 100 different ways to do things because there is, and it's all correct for different shows.
Yeah, everyone needs, you mentioned Clem a few times. We're a big fan of Clem. He has been our customer for a very long time. But, it's every freelancer needs a Clem in their life, right? At some point in their career, somebody who is going to challenge them the right way, show them the right things, get them to think about things a little bit differently, right? Like he did for you.
Yep.
And so there's one things for the classes, but also finding the mentors. But when you talk about, the cost, paying attention, right? And the cost of investing in yourselves. And there's cost for when you ask other human beings to invest in you. But are you seeing companies, as you think about your classes that you're doing really all over the U.S., are companies budgeting for investment in their freelancers more or less than they used to?
I want to say 50-50. So, with my experience with the educational side, I've seen it go both ways. Some of them will invest in their guys directly if they're in-house, right? And they'll invest in those things. Usually nowadays, though, there is more of a package deal. Like if you buy XYZ manufacturers, they will send you a trainer. On the other side of that, where we come in to fill some of that gap, and so do the technology and issue a little bit, is we try to fill in that in between those scenarios where I already own this gear. I've just hired a bunch of new guys. We need training on it. They'll invest in their people to come in and do that. Yeah. I've also seen a couple also pay for their core teams, their aces in the whole. They will pay for those higher end training so that they have those 4 to 6 guys ready to go on a call. Hey, I pay for this training for the next year, whatever it is. Let's make sure we get you booked on shows to make this work. Yeah. But on the other hand, too, I've also seen where, and technically where we fall in the gap here too is a lot of manufacturers are willing to donate the gear and the facility if the trainers can come in and train their people. And it's with that, for me, what that really comes in handy is like, I think people don't understand the cost difference there. I'll give you another example. I use the GAV one because we do these pretty frequently. The GAV class on average, and I'm giving you an average total here, is $25,000 worth of gear that gets put into a facility that typically we get for free with the space for free. The students are paying about $150, which is the lowest we can make it to still cover expenses.
Yeah.
Just for us, right? That's not including the gear, the space, what would cost to rent all that stuff out, like nowhere near that. I would need to do at 150, 20 people to cover a $30,000 cost, right? That's an average cost number. So these numbers are crazy high, but manufacturers and production companies are seeing the value of these trainings and they're trying their best to like, hey, how can I make this happen? I don't have, $25,000 out of inventory is a lot of money. How can I also sell this? Hey, well, let's take care of that portion of it. We'll get students to pay for that portion of it. And then it's like, how do you cover those costs, right? So some things we've done on our side to help students on that side is we have a way to do payment plans, right? We have a way to deal with Klarna on our page. We have a way to deal with PayPal already. It's in our checkout process. We also do scholarship funds. So we have production companies that are paid for that. So that when people ask, hey, I'm fresh out of college, I'm 19 years old, 20 years old, I don't have money. Cool. Submit the application here and we will reach out to our donors who have donated money to this and see if any of them want to donate to you. And we'll write that off, right? And then we've also done other ways where as being a nonprofit, like, hey, if you do have some of the money and you just want some, a way to write off your tax at the end of the year, take one of our classes, keep that receipt, obviously, you can write off this class. So we're trying to help on our side, manufacturers trying to help on their side, laborers trying to help on their side. Everyone's trying to do what they can in a round robin way. Cost has to get covered somewhere because everything works off of money, unfortunately. But we are all trying to make it work as best we can with what we have resources wise. And people are collaborating, people are talking, people are doing what they can. And, it's a beautiful thing, I think. But again, like I said earlier, 5 years ago, this didn't exist. There wasn't an option for this. It was, you're on your own, figure it out, go into the fire, you're going to make it or you're not. And if you did a lot of more nots than make it's, you just got weeded out, right? Now there's a chance for you to stay in this. And the other benefit too is that a lot more companies are recognizing these training courses and being more proactive and saying, hey, if you're certified in this, or if you've done this training class, let me see your stuff and I'll put you up the list a little bit. I will make sure you get more work to not guarantee, but like supplement saying, hey, I want to reward you for taking the effort to invest in yourself, right? And I think one of the biggest things that people forget is when you're a freelancer in the corporate side, especially, or in live events or touring, there isn't a ladder to go up. The way to move up is to invest in yourself and then let your clients know, hey, I've done X, Y, Z to move up my skill set, to move up my knowledge, to improve. Can I move up in your side, right? That is the way to do that. And one of the things I've talked about in the past here, and I'll just do it real quick to wrap this part up here. One of the things I've done in the past is if you want to move up in this industry, especially if you think about I call it the McDonald's mentality, right? 9 to 5, where I do X, Y, Z input, I do X amount of years, I get X amount of rewards. You need to think outside of that and say, if I do 5 years in this industry with this one client and show commitment to them, will they increase me? If I want to move up from a stage end to a crew lead, how do I do that? I need to bring into my clients 5 more people to replace me so that I can become the crew lead because he has more people to use and I have enough experience to be the crew lead. Taking a course would definitely help you. I'm not saying it's going to guarantee it because it's also part of you, but taking a course on a crew leadership, for example, says, hey, you know what? You've taken this course, you brought us some people. Let's put you in this position. Let's see how you handle it. Because now you've shown me you want to go here. You've shown me you've tried to gain the experience. Let's put that to the test and see what happens. Versus no communication, just like, oh, I'm not a crew lead. I've been here for 5 years. Did you communicate that? Did you take any initiative on that? Did you take any classes, any trainings? Did you read a book? Did you go online and communicate any of that to the people that you work with?
You have to do the work before you get the work. That's just kind of the reality, right? It's like the old saying, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want.
Yes.
Back when there was corporate dressing, now it's like everyone's like, whatever, since COVID, right? But, that used to be a thing, right? Dress for the job you want, not the one you have. And it's the same thing. Show the skills for the job you want, not just the one you have, right? Like upskill yourself. Like you got to do the work before they're going to give you the work. And that doesn't mean, oh, they moved me to a different position, but for the day they asked me to do this and try this, but they didn't bump my pay for those 4 hours that I was doing that. Well, look at that as that was your interview, right? Like, don't feel so entitled for those few hours. Like most people who are really trying to make a name for themselves in this industry they're just looking for the opportunity to show what they can do. So sometimes you got to do that before you're granted the formal, official role that you're looking for. So
Yes,
I think that's great guidance. Well, how can our audience, now that you are, I see AV Educate everywhere at Infocom. I saw you kind of everywhere. So first of all, congratulations on that. I think that is fantastic. The industry thanks you for your effort. Really focus on making our industry better by making the people better and investing there. So how can our audience help you? Like, what does AV Educate? What are you looking for next? And how can our audience help?
Our biggest thing right now, obviously, is we need to grow. We have a good following, but we need to grow. So share our content, let people know about us, which I always felt was the tricky part, right? It's like, oh, I have this one resource, so I don't want to tell people about it because then they're going to get a leg up on me. It's like the reality is you either tell your friends about it and you guys grow together, or you don't and they do the same thing you're doing and you guys grow very slowly, right? So share what we do, share the resources, share our content, help us grow so we can do more things, because right now we're limited by the size we are. And it sounds weird because it's, social media and it's online, but really if we can grow on that, we can use more of those funds we get from the influencer contracts, from the social media stuff that we're doing that makes us little pennies here and there. If those grow, we can use those funds to do more things for us. As a nonprofit, that's our mission, is to grow education for the community and to grow what we're doing. So the biggest thing would be helpful for us right now would be to either share with us or volunteer with us. We have a volunteer right now that does a lot of our content stuff as far as editing our videos. So if you see anything over the summertime that you've liked a lot, we have an editor who's been doing that. He's been volunteering his time. He's actually about to graduate from college, so he's getting college credits for that. But we are looking for volunteers as well to do stuff. We have tons of things to do, tons of projects going on all the time that are trickling forward. But now that I have more time to do it, we are moving things more forward, but having a volunteer to help us out. Also, if you just want to get known in the industry, put your face out there. I would love to put other people other than myself and my team as the faces for social media for AV Educate. If you guys have a drive and initiative and you want to just lead one of our projects to fruition and be the face of that project, by all means, let's have a conversation, volunteer your time for us, and we will let you be the face of that content. I have no problems with helping the community grow and putting your face on top of it. We have other people that share their training materials on our page as well. We don't stop that. If you have your own training programs going on, if you have your own stuff going on in courses or anything like that, please share them to the community. I am not gatekeeping information. I'm not gatekeeping education. I want it to be free flowing. I want it to be out there. I want you guys to come for us to like, hey, I want to learn XYZ. You go to AV Educate. You want to go down the rabbit hole for, let's say, like subaligners, you go to Nathan Lively, who posts on herself once in a while, right? He is the guy for that. Go down the rabbit hole with him. Maybe you learned it from us. I'm okay with that, right? You want to learn about Spider, how to do Spider right now? The only person offering that is Drew Taylor at HRE in Phoenix. He posts stuff on our page all the time. Go ahead and go down the rabbit hole with Drew Taylor. He's got great content. He does great classes for the Spider side. I just yesterday came up with Lennox Foster out of South Florida as well, had a Pixel U class with Jasper. I just did an amazing one-day class with them for an introduction to Pixel U. I've been low-key in the back end checking out this product for a long time, and I officially got training today. But again, it's because people are sharing onto the page. So any of those two things, volunteering for us, sharing our content with your community out there, or even just sharing your own stuff with us, by all means, that would help us immensely.
Well, where can people find you?
You can find us almost everywhere on social media. Facebook, Instagram. Actually, we're not on X, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find us on there. Or we're a very cool website we've been working on for the last year and a half called aveducate.com, where you get tons of resources there. We have what's called the AV Library. So if you're a big reader, we have gathered over 150 plus books that you can read on and get those. We also have what's called an articles page, so a lot more soft skills conversations there that are being converted to YouTube evergreen content for you guys down the road. We have all our classes get posted on there every month, about 30 days out. There's about 4 classes a month that get posted on there. So if you're interested in what's coming up, there's a calendar there. There's classes, there's descriptions, there's handouts as well. You guys can all download there for free at www.aveducate.com.
Well, it sounds like to me there is no excuse for anybody in the industry who wants to learn, because you clearly have laid it out, given them lots of opportunities, free and paid. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming on, and thank you for kind of leading our industry in this area. I think it's long overdue, and we really support what you guys are doing. So congrats on the success, and looking forward to having you back yet again, because you just have always such great insight. So thanks for joining, Omar. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. If you like what you hear, don't forget to hit subscribe. And if you have any thoughts, comments, or feedback, reach out to us at podcast@lasso.io. Thanks, everybody.